Hey guys, it's LegoMatic9, and today I'll be doing another one of my LEGO customizing tutorials, this time on how to make Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber hilt. You guys can use this tutorial to make Luke Skywalker's lightsaber hilt from Return of the Jedi, but in this video, I'm specifically going to be making Obi-Wan's. A lot of people requested this tutorial for my Revenge of the Sith video, so I figured now would be a good time to make that. Now, this tutorial is kind of a version 2, since I have already made a video like this on a hilt of this design before, but this version is a lot more detailed and a lot more accurate. So you guys can kind of just pick which design you like the most and go from there. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump right into this. Okay, so we're going to be working at my desk today rather than down in my studio just because I have all my materials up here and I get to sit in a comfy chair, so it's a lot easier for me to customize up here, so I apologize for any shoddy lighting, but it shouldn't be anything too bad. So we're going to start with the materials you guys are going to need to make this lightsaber hilt, starting with the LEGO materials, of course. You'll need a LEGO lightsaber hilt along with the blue blade. You'll need some sort of bar. Doesn't have to be a 6 long and doesn't have to be black. It can be as short as you need it. We'll only need a little sliver from it anyway. And then you'll need an antenna piece. Now on to paints. It kind of depends on which version you guys want to make. Now I'm going to be making the version of Obi-Wan's hilt from the Clone Wars television series. And if you're making the one from Revenge of the Sith, you're going to need bronze paint instead of black. But the black paint I'm going to be using is Apple Barrel Gloss. The gold I'm going to be using is this Folk Art Metallic. And then I'm using Folk Art Sterling Silver. So you guys will need those paints, just colors like that. Doesn't have to be the exact kind, but I figured I'd show you guys those anyway. You'll need some sort of super glue. The super glue I use is Plastic Surgery. For sculpting materials, you're going to need that. I use Procreate, so I'd really recommend this. You'll need an X-Acto knife or some sort of cutting tool. You'll need some sort of sandpapers or different grits of just some filing materials, and then you'll need something to paint with. So let's go ahead and get started. Now the thing I would recommend starting with first is getting your sculpting material and rolling it up into a little rod like this. Now the thickness of this needs to be in between the size of the bar and the size of the antenna. More so closer to the size of the bar, but still smaller so you can tell the difference between the two. Because what you're doing here is, this will be used for the neck of the lightsaber, and you don't want that to be thin or else it'll break. Because this part is already thin enough and you don't want it to be thin somewhere else too. So sculpt this and let it cure while you're working on the next part. Next, you want to take your actual lightsaber hilt and you want to make 2 cuts. One here and then one here. So then you have 3 pieces that look like this. Now just like my previous design, you want to take this top part of the hilt and you want to carve a hole in this section that goes all the way through, that allows the blade to just go all the way through this bit. So it'll be coming out this other end. As you can see, I've got this hole cut. Next thing I'm going to do to this piece is sand the top of this, so this part is just a little thinner. So I've got that sanded down quite a bit. Now we're going to take this piece right here that we cut from the main hilt, and we're going to cut this bar in like half, because we're going to use half of this for the top of the hilt, then half of it for the bottom of the hilt. So we'll be using this part right here, so just like cut it right here and then cut that part in half. Now here's just a little tip I was thinking of while I was actually getting ready to cut this bar. Now what we're going to be doing with these pieces is, well, one of them is going to get put inside this part of the hilt to create a solid surface on this end here, so that way you'll be able to glue it onto other objects and it'll just have a firm support for the actual blade here. Now what I'm thinking of doing is just, I put all of that piece of the rod there that I originally said to cut in half, and what I'm thinking about doing is just putting a little bit of glue around the edges here, alright? So that way this rod will get glued in here, and then from there I can just cut whatever part of the rod I need off there and sand it down from there. Just that way I won't risk getting that piece glued in there at a wrong angle or getting it glued to the blade or anything like that. So that is what I'm going to do, and that's what I advise you guys to do. So just put the rod in here, so that way the blade and that little bar piece are in there, and then run some glue around the edge here to get this piece glued in there, and then cut from there. Here's what this part looks like after I cut the rod off and sanded it. So as you can see, you just want a nice flush surface across that bit there. Now for the pommel of the hilt, you want to take this bit here and you want to shape up where you cut it off there and sand it so it's nice and flat there. And then you'll use whatever piece of the rod you have left and sand it down so it's straight on both ends. And not super long, you don't need this thing to be that long, but what we're going to do is just take this and put this inside there. Now using this piece, you want to cut off just one of these handles. You don't need two, you just need to cut off one, and then you want to sand whatever side you cut off so it looks something a little more like this. Next, you want to take that pommel piece we were just working with and your glue and just put a little bit of glue in there. Not a whole lot, but just put that in there, and then using whatever side of this is longer, so like as you can see this end is longer than the other one, you want to glue that end into the pommel. Like that. Now we're going to start working on the actual neck of the lightsaber, so using our, I guess, medium size roll of Procreate, you would just want to cut a little sliver off of that and then glue it onto the main hilt assembly. Next, just cut a little sliver off of your Lego rod, then take this piece and glue that on right here. So now you should have something that looks like this. Now from this little lever piece, you want to cut out a little section just like you did with that bar, and then you'll glue that piece onto this top part of the hilt. So now we have these two main parts, and the only thing left to do is just glue these things together. Now we're almost ready to move on to actually painting this thing, but if you guys want to do this part, you guys can. That would be to sculpt the little ignition switch he has down there. So after about 4 hours, the ignition switch dried completely, so I'm going to go ahead and sand that down just a little bit. Okay, so now we can actually move on to the painting part of this hilt. Now, we're going to start off with the silver, and the three areas you're going to want to paint silver on this thing are, one, the bottom of the pommel here. This circular section down here is where we cut off this part from the actual Lego hilt. So we need to paint that silver because right now it's kind of like a light gray. And same thing with the top. If you guys sanded that bit, it's going to be that same off color there. So paint that silver as well. And then the last area is the ignition switch. So paint that switch silver, and then also a little silver band going across the black part here. Once I get this thing painted, you guys will see how I actually painted that. So if a minifig grabs this, it won't really rub off the paint. So let's go ahead and paint this thing up. Okay, I got the silver painted on there, and as you can see, for the ignition switch area for the silver band that's wrapping around, you can see that I kind of just stopped painting it the full length and just thinned it out and painted it around just that thin area. And that's just because if you have a hand grabbing onto this, you paint that full silver all the way around, then it's going to rip some of that off and it's going to look kind of nasty. So I only painted a little thin parts, that way you won't get any paint rub, or shouldn't get any paint rub, but I still had the full thickness at the front there, because as you can see, if I grab Obi-Wan here, that front part is not going to get rubbed off since it's in the, I guess, the clasp of the hand part. So now we're going to move on to the gold paint. And the areas I'm painting gold are going to be one thin gold line on the actual ignition switch there. Then I'm going to get this area right here in gold, and then the thicker part in gold here. So let's go ahead and paint those up. So that gold paint looks dry to me, so now we can move on to the final painting step of this tutorial. Now if you guys are making the Clone Wars version, we're going to be painting this area of that neck a black color. Now it's black for me already, and it's probably black for you guys, but I had some overflow of some super glue, and I want to cover that up with some paint, so I'll be repainting that. Now if you guys are making the Revenge of the Sith version of the hilt, use some bronze paint and paint this area of the neck a bronze color. So let's go ahead and do that and finish up this tutorial. Once you get that painted, you are all done. So here's a look at the 2008 Clone Wars style lightsaber hilt that I made for this video, alongside with the Revenge of the Sith version. As you can see, the only real difference between the two is the Revenge of the Sith version has a bronze part to the neck, whereas this one has a black part to the neck. Now here's just a look at these compared to my older style of this lightsaber hilt. And as you can see, this one fits in with the Lego style more, I feel, but these ones are far more accurate. So you guys can follow along with either one of those tutorials to make a solid looking lightsaber hilt of the style. And both of them, I think, are better than the official Lego hilt. So you guys can pick which one you guys like. I personally prefer this one, even though it is harder to make, but this one might be easier if you guys aren't really too familiar with customizing things. But anyway, I hope you guys were able to follow along with this tutorial. If you guys need any clarification or have any questions about this process, be sure to leave those down in the comments. I'll be sure to help out as much as I can. Anyway, hopefully you guys were able to follow along with this. Hope this lightsaber makes a fine addition to your collection, and I will see you guys later.